Welcome to The Right Focus, a podcast for writers, newbies, and veterans, and everyone in between. We're hosted by Emma Lee with the assistance of Remy Black and Edie Rooms, all from Writers Inc. Books. Our focus is productivity, process, craft, and tools. Each episode lasts as long as it takes to fix a quick dinner, drive a short commute, or take a brisk walk. Resources and links are in the show notes. Visit us at therightfocus.blogspot.com. Now, on to this week's episode.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you.
Okay.
Hello.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I am doing well.
Excellent. Excellent. Let's just start. Introduce us. Let you tell us who you are, where you are, and something about your writing before we start talking about technology.
Okay, yeah. So Marie Still, I write thriller and horror novels. I also write book club fiction, women's fiction under Kristen Seeley. And my latest release is My Darlings.
That's a good title. How do you spell silly?
Still?
S-E-E?
Oh, Seeley, Seeley.
Okay. So I want to be people to be able to find you. All right. So the whole purpose of this is to talk about what technology you use that you find helpful in your writing or maybe detrimental.
Yeah. Yeah. So I definitely am more of a low tech writer. It's funny because I pay for a lot of tools, but just for like one small piece of it. So when I started writing in Google Docs and Word, but I write on my computer and on my phone. So and I found that Google Docs, it didn't sync. And so I was
Right.
having issues with it syncing. So I've moved over to the last 3 books. I use Living Writer because I really like how the phone app works. And there's probably like 800 features that I'm not paying for, especially because I'm more of a pantser than a plotter, and they have different tools that help you with planning out your book. So I use Living Writer mostly because I really like how the phone app and the computer sync seamlessly.
I haven't heard of that.
What?
I haven't heard of Living Writer.
I don't know if they're new or how long they've been around for. I stumbled on them because I was having so many issues with using Google Docs, and I'd type something on my phone app and then it wouldn't sync. And I was like, I just need something better. Um, and then the other one that I use a lot is Pro Writing Aid.
Yes.
And I mainly use it for the repeats report, which I find so beneficial, especially when you're using, because you can find a sentence that is maybe on page 1 and page 100, which as you're reading through it and you're drafting and you're going through your drafts, those are like impossible to find. So I really love their repeat reports.
I would need that because I use well, they were going to do this.
Yeah.
Or I use so this happened. And so that would help me find those.
I definitely have my filler naughty words that I know I have to do a find after. On draft 2, we're looking for all the buts, we're looking for all the justs, we're looking for smiles, the nodding of the head, all those things that, we find ourselves leaning into maybe a little bit too much.
What else? What other technology do you use?
I live and breathe by my notes app on my phone because when I'm on my first draft, I'm doing a lot of writing in my head before I sit down. So generally the first 4 weeks of my first draft is very slow. I'll maybe get 20,000 words in that first month because a lot of it is just formulating the characters, formulating the scenes in my head. and I will be eavesdropping on different conversations
Mm-hmm.
and kind of and it because I'm so focused on that story, lines will come to me or scenes will come to me. And so my notes app is just like full of just lines or notes or don't forget this. I'll wake up in the middle of the night. Some of those I can actually decipher in the morning. Some of them I have no idea what I've said. But yeah, those are the three that I mainly use.
Okay. And so you're formulating ideas, and then you start the process of actually thinking about those ideas in story form. And that's when you use the Notes app and you convert those to the computer. Do you go straight to the computer when you're
Yes.
writing? Okay.
Yeah, generally. And then once I'm writing, I will use my phone just because I travel a lot. I am at volleyball games and things like that. So it just gives me a way to be able to get in some word counts wherever I am.
Mm-hmm.
But generally I start with I don't write outlines, I don't plot, but I do have a character cheat sheet. So I do that in Word and always have that up on my second screen. And it just has the character basic description, what they look like, but then also getting a little bit deeper. What are their flaws? What are their strengths?
Mm-hmm.
Who influences them from the other characters, and what makes them really uncomfortable, their fears, all of these different things that dive in a little bit deeper. And so
Okay.
I'll keep that up as my cheat sheet when I'm writing.
So do you have a specific word count that you're working for while you're drafting?
I write bony first drafts because I don't plot out.
Mm-hmm.
And especially in thriller and horror, you need those curiosity seeds and you need those red herrings. And as I start to get further into the story, I have an idea of where a story is going to end, but not, I don't think any of my books have actually ended the way I first anticipated them to end.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll generally get to like a 70,000 word count, 75,000 on the first draft. And then I go back on that second draft and add all that meat.
Okay. So it's very bare bones, the first draft, and then the second draft starts fleshing things out. Do you find that when you're coming through as what I would call my revision stage, which might be your third draft, that you're adding a lot or you're completely changing direction? Do you see that happening at all?
Uh, Mostly I'm just adding.
Okay.
Um, there's if the ending is gone in a completely different direction, then I'm definitely rewriting or adding scenes, but it's adding scenes, it's really flushing out those
Right.
scenes. Sometimes there'll be maybe a a side plot that gets added in. And there one book I started and I wrote it all in third person, got to the end, and I was like, no, this really needs to be first person. So that was fun. And that was it was like 3 years ago and I'm still traumatized by it. So I really now when I start, I'm like, okay, what point of view are we writing in? Because we can never do this again. But mostly it's just adding in those special moments or those
Mhm.
teasers or those curiosity seeds that really just bring the story to life.
So, do you face what you consider writer's block at all? Like when you're in that first draft, you spend like 2 or 3 days saying, "I have no idea. I have no idea at all what's supposed to happen next or anything."
100%, especially in the first half. The
Mhm.
first half is really where I'm slow. And
Mhm.
I think it's just because I don't know these characters so
Mhm.
intimately. And I am kind of working through the story in my head, again, doing a lot of that writing and a lot of that scene building in my head. So the first half generally takes me about a month and a half. And
Mhm.
then that second half is cranked out in like 2 to 3 weeks.
Because
So
you've
it's
got
like
everything set. You're
I'm
just
on
adding.
my like roller coaster, like slowly going up, trudging through mud. And then I hit a point where I'm like, I have my vision. I know these characters.
Mhm.
And it's just like we are on that hill down.
And it's smooth sailing,
Yes, yes.
even when
But
you hit a curve that throws you off.
exactly. But I like to call it my point where even though no, I'm on book 6 right now, and
Mhm.
that beginning stage is like, do I remember how to write a book stage? And then I get into it and I'm like, okay, no, I remember. But there's definitely that point where I'm questioning, were the other ones a fluke? Can I do this again?
The one I've just finished, chapter 4, was it took weeks to
Yeah.
just a half a page at a time, and I was like pulling teeth trying to get everything to work around the way that I knew it needed to go because it was the third concluding book in a trilogy, and I'm going like, oh word, this is not
Yeah.
happening. I don't even like these people anymore.
Yeah. And you just watch that like cursor thing blink at you,
Yes.
blink, blink. I'm like, oh my gosh.
Well, my first draft is by longhand, and so
Okay.
I had countless pages where I wrote it and I have learned not to tear it up and throw it away until I am sure that that's what it's going to be. But I would write it and then I would scratch it out.
My
And then I would
first
write those
book,
pages again and then just scratch them out again.
the first book I wrote out
Mm-hmm.
by hand. And then I did like that process
Mm-hmm.
because you write by hand, it's so freeing. You just
Yes.
go, you don't get in your head. And then when you're typing it out, it's really easy to edit, right? So it's a
Mm-hmm.
neat process. And I keep saying I'm going to write another book that way because I did enjoy that process.
Mm-hmm. I can fly when I'm writing by hand.
Yep.
My problem is I can't read my handwriting sometimes.
See, that is that. I mean, I have to send it to my mom
Mm-hmm.
oftentimes, like, because I'll scribble notes too. And I'll send it to my mom and be like, what did I write here? Because my mom's the only one who can read my handwriting. And she's like, Arden has bangs. I was like, oh, okay. So that was me telling myself to make sure that Arden always has bangs.
So, how did you get started into deciding to write and publish? Was it a
Yeah.
long time dream? Because I decided in sixth grade I wanted to be a writer.
Yep. I read Carrie by Stephen King and was
Mm-hmm.
completely hooked. I was probably too young to read Carrie, but that's a whole different story. And I would go around little, I don't even know how old I was, 10, 12, who knows? But I would go around and anyone who would listen, I'm going to be the female Stephen King when I grow up. And my mom has always been super supportive of whatever crazy dream comes. So she's like, all right, well, let's get you in writing camps and you love books. You're always like, I was the kid who always had my face in a book. So she got me into lots of different programs, lots of different contests. I was an award-winning author with a story that was maybe a little bit too similar to some of the cartoons I was watching at that time. And then I went to college and majored in English and
Mm-hmm.
really fell into marketing from that. So my writing took a switch from creative writing to product descriptions and
Mm-hmm.
ad copy and all those sorts of things. And then I had 4 kids and had this other career.
Mm-hmm.
So that dream kind of took a seat. But then COVID came, we were home a lot more. My kids were a lot older. And my friend said, Marie, you've been talking about writing a book forever since I've known you. Could you just write the dang book? And so I was like, all right, fine, I'll write the book. So I wrote the book, queried, had I think 12 agents with
Mhm.
fulls, but then I met my publisher and the rest is history.
Well, that's great. That's great. Do you find that the marketing aspect is easier for you when you turn into it? Because a lot of writers, they're so used to the fiction aspect, it's difficult for them to convert their brain into promoting themselves and their writing.
I would say before, when I was a debut author, I was like, "Oh, I've been doing marketing for years. I've been in e-commerce since we were on AOL. This will be so
Mhm.
easy, the marketing piece. Book marketing is totally different than marketing
Mhm.
consumer products. So
Mhm.
where it has helped is that I have a really strong understanding of social media and
Mhm.
engaging, and so I feel comfortable with the tools to create content, to get on social media and just talk
Mhm.
to the camera. But it's a whole different beast. And I think a lot of people in marketing who end up, because there are a lot of authors with a marketing background,
Mhm.
they get in and they're like, wait, this is different. Even the buying cycles and understanding the how retailers buy, it's
Mhm.
much different. I'm meeting with Target several times a year. I'm meeting with Walmart several times a year.
Mhm.
And the way that the buyers buy products that are in the store, totally different than how books work.
Mhm.
So everything that I knew about marketing and even retail sales, it didn't really help because I'm learning everything from scratch because it just doesn't work the same.
Mhm. So, did your publisher connect you in with your major distributors like Target and Walmart? Is that how you connected with them?
Yes. So I'm in Target for, I also still, I work as chief revenue officer for 14 brands.
Mhm.
So I have that job and this
Right.
job.
Mhm.
So I'm in Target talking to them about baby blankets and teacups. And I have nothing to do with any of
Mhm.
the buyer meetings. And that's just from, because I'll be like, I don't understand. Like, don't you have line reviews once a year? And then you know what's said. And so I've gotten educated on no, like it's not the same.
It's different.
It's
It's,
very
it's
different.
it's as if marketing a book is a stepchild of the marketing world because we need to do it. We know we need to do it, but I really don't want to talk about it because they're all such different products. There's no way that you can say, oh, this fits this kind of customer and
Yeah.
this will fit this kind of season. And it
Yep.
doesn't really work that way with books. I mean, books are not lettuce
No.
and, you know, like produce that come and bananas that quickly rot and die, but books are sort of like evergreen. But we have our new products that are coming out that we want to promote. And then we have this backlist. Oh, I have this too. It's still good.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's one thing that debut authors going in, it's very unusual for a debut author for it to go big, right?
Mm-hmm.
And with on other consumer products, you spend about the same amount of time in product development. So there's months and months and months and lots of money and lots of time dedicated to it. And when you launch a product, you definitely expect that product to hit.
Mm-hmm.
And you're getting a 95% hit of that product going
Mm-hmm.
big. But with books, it's really about building your readership and it takes time. And
Mm-hmm.
most authors, it's not until their fifth, sixth, 10th book that you really get that one book that hits big. And I think it's one of those hard pills to swallow because we do see debut authors hit New York Times bestsellers and USA Today, and that's unusual.
Yes.
Usually, if you
Mm-hmm.
go back to even some of the biggest names in publishing right now, they've been doing this for 20 years and it's taken them 10 books to
Mm-hmm.
get their name that big. So it's just that snowball. And you
Mm-hmm.
just have to keep putting out and talking about your backlist and finding your reader base. which is why I do love social media, and I use it as more of a community building and connecting, because as each book, I've come to know my community and they support my launches, and that community grows with each book that I put out.
Yes. What social media platforms do you find most helpful, and why do you
Tik-
find them helpful?
TikTok and Instagram,
Really?
definitely. Yep.
Hmm.
I have I use Facebook, so I participate in genre specific Facebook groups as a reader,
Hmm.
and I very rarely will self promote in there. I'm mostly
Hmm.
recommending other books or commenting or finding books to read, much
Right.
to
Mhm.
RIP my TBR. And I'll off right around release time. I'll often work with the moderators to do giveaways for those groups.
Right.
Instagram definitely is where I found like my strongest connections of
Okay.
people who I've met who now I consider friends. They come out to book signings, we engage, we interact, we have chats about books. And then TikTok, it's just it's easy to go viral, but it is exhausting because
Hmm.
you'll have video after video, 300 views, 300 views, 300 views, and then all of a sudden one hits like a million. So
Hmm.
those are the two where I'm creating the most content. But honestly, the most effective social media is other people posting my books.
That's true. The word of mouth aspect
Yep.
really comes in. Do you use YouTube at all to take
I
your
don't.
Instagrams?
I don't. I
Okay.
have a page and I was like good about doing shorts, and I had a Pinterest page, but it just for the sake of time and meeting my deadlines, I had to skinny it down a little bit.
Hmm. It
But
can.
what works for me is not going to work for everyone else. You have to find where your readers are. You have to also, with book marketing, from building your own platform, you have to enjoy yourself. If
Mhm.
it's forced and it's exhausting and it burns you out, then it's going to be bad marketing. And
Mhm.
it's going to take away from the most important thing, which is writing your next book.
Yes. Yes. I see that. I see that quite a lot because the podcast, just doing the basic podcast can wear me out during the course of a week.
Right.
And so I'm constantly thinking I've got to stay ahead. I've got to stay ahead. And then go with that. And if I ever take a vacation, I'm behind. And it's not
Yep.
just 2 weeks behind, it's like 3 weeks behind. And then I'm scrambling.
Yeah.
So we've talked about your publishing journey and your writing process and working with social media. What would you like to talk about? What's coming out next for you?
Yeah, so I just had My Darlings just released
Hmm.
about on October 8th. It was an interesting release because I'm in Florida, so I got evacuated the day before my book release, which
Well,
means
Milton or Helene?
it was Helene. Yeah.
Okay.
So and that week was completely booked with
Hmm.
events. And so I am trying to release a book and trying to reschedule. But then there were events after that I was on the
Hmm.
road for. So
Hmm.
it was chaos. But
Hmm.
the other cool thing was on release date at the launch event, we were going to be announcing the TV option. So it was kind of a bummer, but we ended up using Instagram and doing the release date virtually, and then just kind of moving all of the events out. And so the last one was the day before Halloween. But yeah, so My Darlings, Eloise, she's a mom, she's a serial killer,
Oh
and it
my.
and it has been optioned by Kelly Ripa is going to be executive
Hmm.
producing. The writers from You are going to be writing, James Griffiths directing, and Amazon MGM Studios is
Oh,
the
that'll be good.
distribution service. So really excited about that. My I just finished the first round of copy edits on next year's release, which is bad things happened in this room. My oldest daughter moved out at the beginning of this year. So I turned that grief and sadness over that into my writing. And it's a descent into madness horror about motherhood and grief. So that comes out next year. And I am very behind on I have a book due in 2 weeks that I will be somehow magically producing over the next couple weeks.
Please tell me you have the rough draft one done. And all you have to do
I
is
only have 8,000 words written.
Oh,
So
you shall be in my thoughts.
we are in a little bit of a panic mode, but it's okay. It's okay. I'm not giving up yet.
So I have 4 minutes left on our timer. Is there anything else you would like to talk about?
No, I think the one biggest piece of advice for writers is there's a lot of absolutes that get talked about in writing and publishing, and it's no one's journey and no one's process is right. They're all right. I don't have an agent, but I have books in Barnes and Noble and Chapters, and I have a TV option. So that's something that everyone says, oh, if you don't have an agent, you'll never get on Barnes and Noble. You'll never get a film option. You'll never get foreign rights. You'll never get audio. That's just not true. And everyone's process, you have to find your own. Because what works for me is just not going to work for everyone else. So that's one thing I hate when you see the advice and it's delivered in absolutes.
Yes. I see that too. Thank you so much, Marie.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
My Darlings is out now and soon to be in TV as well. Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to The Right Focus, a podcast for writers at all levels, hosted by Emma Lee from Writers Inc. Books, assisted by Remy Black and Edie Runes. Our focus is productivity, process, craft, and tools. Music is licensed through Audio Jungle, called Background Music Loop. Its creator is Alexander Polishchuk, known on Audio Jungle as Plastic 3. The music comes in different iterations. Show notes and resource links for this and other episodes can be found at therightfocus.blogspot.com. Write to us at winkbooks@aol.com when you have questions, comments, and speculations. We will try to answer you as quickly as possible. By the way, we will not mind your email address. That's rude. If you find value in our content, share with your writing friends or write a review. We're small beans here without the advertising budget of the big peeps, and you can make a difference. And whatever occurs, write on.